Match week 7 was something. What is the biggest shock for you?
Well, I think there's been a couple, obviously Manchester City losing to Wolves, but I think the Aston Villa game was a really big shock. I don't think anybody saw that one coming. People that put bets on these types of things, or the fantasy football, I'm sure they were going through the roof, wasn't they? Because no one saw that one coming. Fantastic from Aston Villa, and Emery's done an amazing job since he got that job. I was one of the people that said, give him some time. I know some Aston Villa fans are thinking, he might be not the right person for the job, but what he did against Brighton, and Brighton are in a team in form right now, was incredible.
If anyone predicted that 6-1 scoreline, please get in touch with us.
Julian probably did.
And share the lotto numbers. We need lotto numbers if you were that good. Do you see anything like that happening again? It was a crazy Saturday, a rare one, even for the Premier League.
Yeah, and we had a 8-0 already before,
Yeah.
obviously with Newcastle and Sheffield United. So we've had big scores already in the Premier League this season. However, you don't usually see them that often. I would love another big win for someone. I don't think it'll be this week.
We start tonight off with that major matchup at the Emirates Stadium. Let's hear from the managers, Mikel Arteta and Pep Guardiola.
Well, he's in contention. Let's see how he progresses from here to Sunday. And obviously he had to leave the pitch. That's never good news, but let's see how it recovers.
Can you give us clarity on what exactly the muscular injury was?
I leave that for the doctors.
And Thomas Partey, is he fit enough to start now? And is there any other team news we should know about?
Well, he's ahead of schedule, that's for sure. And we wanted to have him in the squad. If we needed to, the way the game planned, obviously we had other necessities and we didn't use him. So it's good. He will be in the squad.
So you call me there? Is that it? Okay, we'll go to Jake from the Premier League.
Thank you. Mikel, you made your best unbeaten start for Arsenal since 16 years ago. What, if anything, can you put that down to?
Well, consistency, for sure. And that's what we are looking for. I think in this league, you have to be at your best every single match. We have managed to win a lot of games. Something that we have been better is when you cannot win, you don't lose it, except of a midweek in the Champions League. And that's why it requires to be every single 3 days, be at your best.
How's David Raya settled in since he arrived from Brentford?
Very good. Around the place with his teammates, around the club, obviously. He knows London really well. He knows the way we play. He's so used to that. He knows the league so exceptionally well.
And looking at Sunday's game then, is there anything at all that you can take from the Community Shield game into Sunday's game?
Well, that was an important one for us. Obviously, winning that title against City is always something that you have to value the way we did it as well, and it gives us confidence as well and belief that we can beat them.
Is there any difference that you think now between the sides as opposed to back then?
Well, that's a while ago. Obviously, it was after pre-season. We have some players available, some players not available. We are much more into the season, so I think it will be a different game.
Okay, best of luck.
Go to Bradley from TalkSport.
Hi Mikel,
Hi.
hope you're well. Does Wolves win over Man City last week show that City aren't as invincible as many people think they are?
Well, I don't know. Any team in the Premier League has the tools and the quality to beat you, and I think all the managers, we are aware of that for sure.
I mean, we've looked at Arsenal's record against City in the league in recent memory. I don't think Arsenal have beaten City in the league since 2015. How much of an impact has that had on the squad, or what do you need to change this time to make sure you do get that win over them this time?
Well, we are not looking that far, that's for sure, because obviously there were no players participating in those games. But we know one thing for certain, is we're going to have to be at our best. And we're going to have to be at our best in every department for 100 minutes. And then we have a chance.
Is this a season-defining game for Arsenal? I mean, if you do get 3 points, does that give you much-needed confidence to show that you can win the Premier League this year?
No, it would be a big boost, obviously, energy and confidence-wise, but apart from that and the 3 points, nothing else.
And lastly, there's been talk this week about Ben Wright being in talks about a new contract. How impressed have you been by the way he's developed in his time at Arsenal? And once again, are you surprised that he's been overlooked by England again this week?
No, I'm really happy with Ben. I think he's been a very consistent player for us. He's been always available for us. I think he has developed in a great way, both as a centre-back and especially as a full-back, because there were some question marks there as well. I think he's got a character of a fighter, a character that is needed in the squad, especially at this level, and I'm really happy to have him.
That's great. Best of luck this weekend. Thank you.
Art from the Athletic.
Hi, Mikel. I was just wondering how much you remember of the game against City on New Year's Day when you had COVID and you couldn't be at the game. And from an outsider's perspective, that seemed like a really big moment for this squad's progress. Could you feel that even when you weren't at the stadium?
For sure, and I could feel it from home, and that was a huge step. We didn't manage to get nothing from the game at the end when we ended with 10 men. But I think last year's at home as well, it was a big one, the way we played, and we ended up losing the game, and we took some big lessons from that, but as well a lot of positives to take into the season.
And a slightly different one, I was just wondering how, is it a worrying precedent when, I guess, referees are maybe not allowed to referee certain clubs' matches now with what's happened over the past week or so?
I don't know, it's something that we don't have a say, we don't manage, and I think they are trying to make the best decision. They are trying to protect the game. They are trying to get as much as support and as well be ruthless when it needs to be. I think at some point as well we need to give support, and we need to understand that mistakes happened. You know, we make mistakes as well, and if not, I think the pressure will be so much that it will be very, very difficult to manage.
Clive from Football.
Hi, Mikel. It's obviously going to be a very high intensity and high atmosphere game. We've seen very good atmospheres at the Emirates already this season, ahead of PSV, ahead of Spurs, and you've said in the past that maybe in those atmospheres your team can maybe get a bit too emotional or a bit too caught up in the emotion of the occasion. What will you do to try and stop them from doing that, just keeping their focus on the pitch?
Well, first of all, I think that we have the best atmosphere ever at the Emirates, you know, and if we can create it, that's going to be so helpful for the team. It's how we manage. We have moments that we have managed it exceptionally well. Against PSV was a really good example, set some pass against the Spurs, but that's down to us. But hopefully the crowd can produce that, and that will be a big plus for us.
And James from ESPN.
Hi, Mikel. Just on Bukayo, just to clarify, presumably he's had a scan which has shown no major damage, which must be a positive in terms of his injury.
In contention. That's it. I'm not a doctor. That's what they told me.
And just on him in terms of England, presumably, are you going to have a conversation with Gareth about managing his minutes during that international break? One of those games is a friendly, obviously, against Australia.
Listen, I have spoken to Gareth in several occasions, you know, but I have to do my job. I give him the news and the position that everybody is at, and then we have really good communication, and he needs to make the best decision as well for the national team, and I'm not going to get involved there.
No. John Stones is not ready to play. He's not ready to play. Maybe for national team, but not for us.
You've got obviously a great record against Arsenal. They pushed you all the way last season. Do you think they'll be your main title rivals again in this campaign?
Absolutely. Among Liverpool and what we have seen. But it's just, I think, to analyze who is the title contenders, the first idea is the first 10 games, and now we didn't play not even 10, so we have to wait, but the big clubs always will be contenders, and Arsenal is, of course.
Pep, the last two games without Rodri have not gone as you would hope in terms of the result. Does that mean you have to think of something else to do because the opponent is a higher level again?
Yeah, we see what happened. We start to talk today with my staff. This afternoon, analyze tomorrow morning, after in the afternoon. We're going to prepare the game tomorrow, but yes, the influence of Rodri, we are talking maybe one of the best, maybe the best, or one of the 2-3 best holding midfielders in the world, so it's normal that the influence in the team is so big. It's normal. But it's not there. And always we handle it the last years with many absence, move forward and do it. But yeah, we will play without him, and that's all.
I mean, people look at Rodri because he's a holding midfield player. He doesn't. I mean, I know he scored the goal in the Champions League final, but you know, sometimes it's difficult to quantify what those players do and what difference they make. But I suppose when they're not there that you realise.
Yeah, the teams are defined for the quality of your players and the team spirit, and the relation between them is much more important than any tactics that you can use, because when you have a good team spirit, a good relation between them, when you make a mistake defensively, the other one is going to help you and you're going to solve your problem. And we overestimate a lot of tactics, the systems and these kind of things, and the relations are so important. And when you have an absence as important like him, we have to find something inside of us to find a solution. And this is when I try to do it. So I'm not going to deny how important is Rodri, like is Kevin, like is many players of many years are here, but they are not. We cannot start to crying and complaining. You have to find a solution, and solution will be 11 players going to be there to try to win in London.
But with no Kevin, with no Rodri, how reassured, how delighted are you at the way your younger players are now coming through and almost staking a claim to be playing every week?
I'm delighted for everyone, not the young players, the seniors one, and everyone, since we know where we come from the travel, and after the tendency is a little bit, go down. We could play better or worse, but in general, the training sessions and the focus in the team is still there. So after a few games, we are top of the league, and in Champions League we make an incredible step forward to qualify in Champions League. That in this month is the most important thing by far, is qualify until February, restart the Champions League being there, and after you can focus in the Premier League until Champions League is back again. So we make an incredible step this last Wednesday. And we have 2 games away to qualify, and now we have London. Arsenal, it was the biggest rival last season. Like in the past, was not there. They already arrived. They will stay there for a long time. And another game.
The big talking point in the Premier League this week has been the VAR situation and Jurgen wanting a replay for his game. Can what's your assessment of the way the system's been working?
No, I said before the game in Champions League, so it's done. So it was a mistake, accept it. So it's always difficult, the human make mistakes, but the machines have to avoid it. That's why the VAR is there to reduce all the humans the mistakes we do. But at the end, the machines have been lit for a human being. So it's happened, it was a mistake. So hopefully finish here and getting better, improve for that. So I think the Premier League or the people from VAR will improve for that, to try to avoid and make the reason why the fair game. So the reason why the VAR was implemented is to make our game, more right. So hopefully it will be better in the future.
Obviously, it's a good result in midweek, but what do you want to see on Sunday that you didn't see at Wolves on Saturday?
Well, there's different games. So Premier League is difficult, and Leipzig was too, but it's different games, different approach. The approach for Wolves is completely different than Arsenal. So Wolves defend after 1 minute, a striker go with Matteo, holding midfielder, and 11 players in 80 box, looking for the transition from Neto, from Cunha, for Honk. So and I don't think Arsenal is going to happen. So that's why will be different, and we have to adapt and see. We know each other quite well, I think so, and we will see.
Well, Arsenal were the main challengers to City last season, but it was still a gap between the two of them. And City have this fantastic record against Arsenal, 12 in a row.
Yeah, they do. And I think, obviously, last season it came down to that game at the Etihad, but lost it before that against Southampton and those types of teams dropping points against West Ham as well. And ultimately, Manchester City, I was probably one of the only people that backed Arsenal to win. I was saying, top of the league at Christmas, they could definitely do it. And then they kind of just fallen off just a little bit at the end. But there was so much progression from Arsenal last year. Went from not making the top 4 to then coming second in the league. And Mikel Arteta touched upon it there. The atmosphere at the Emirates is the best I've ever seen it. Since they've moved from Highbury, which I loved going there when I played for Arsenal, it was brilliant. But the atmosphere just hasn't been at the Emirates. These last couple of seasons, Julian, has been amazing.
Yeah, the Highbury Library.
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Very different. I think that the fans really feel this club. There's been a reconnection between the fans and the club that had gone away the end of the Wenger's years and then Emery and all of that. And I think Arteta has also kind of brought that mentality all together, which is very impressive.
Let's talk about Arteta and his battle with Pep. Obviously, one of the side shows and a major one in terms of what they're going to do out there. This recent record that I mentioned was 12 in a row for City. If they make it 13 in a row, it equals the longest winning run one team has had against another in the Premier League. But you picked up some interesting stuff about the matches between the two last season.
Yeah, we discussed this a bit before the show. Last season, they played 3 games together against each other, 2 in the league, of course, and 1 in the FA Cup. And each time, Arteta, who's never beaten Pep, by the way, in the league, apart from that win in the FA Cup in 2020, tried to come up with a high aggressive press, man-on-man. So everybody had one player they had to follow everywhere for that press. And Pep in the first game chose to play long on Haaland to beat that press, and that was very effective. In the second game, where Arsenal were at the Emirates, they put them under a lot of pressure. Bernardo Silva playing a left-back, if you remember. And then when they had the ball, was coming into midfield. That didn't work out. Pep changed everything at half-time, and then they went 4-3-3 and they won that game late. And then the third game at the Etihad, that Liam mentioned earlier, he had De Bruyne playing almost as a second striker next to Haaland in the 4-2-4 formation, and Arsenal could not cope with that at all. So every time it seems that at the moment, Pep have a solution for any problem that Mikel Arteta puts on him. Let's see if that's the same on Sunday.
Both teams missing some key players, or some key players in danger of missing the game. Let's talk about Saka, because he is in contention, we've heard from Arteta, to feature, but the question is he being played too much? Should he be given a break? From a player's point of view, is he just wants to play?
I think I would want to play, but then I think for ultimately you have to manage the player. Every player wants to play, but sometimes you have to take it away. But a game like this, he has to play. You know, obviously if he's got a knock, that's a little bit different, but he was carrying something in the last game as well. But he's been amazing. And the fact that he can play at that level and be consistent in that way, year after year at such a young age, is amazing. He's such a top player. Because there's not much consistency, is there, in the Premier League sometimes? You see something. Manchester City seem to be the only team that seem to have that consistency every single game. Some of their players, when Kevin De Bruyne plays, at least 8s and 9s out of 10s. So I feel like Saka is one of those players that always maximises potential in every game, always looks dangerous, and he'll be a loss if he's not going to be able to play.
Yeah, I think it's a massive blow. Maybe the worst one for Arsenal, for that team, for everything they bring to the club. The good thing, in a way, if we can say like that, is it's an international break straight after. So it's not like Arsenal were playing 3 days later in the Champions League, for example, where you would not want to take any risk. If he can't play for England and he misses out on 2 games, I don't think it's the end of the world, and he can rest for 10 days and then go again with Arsenal after the break.
I want to stick with you because you mentioned Kevin De Bruyne already. We know he's not going to be involved in that game. And he's such a prolific record against Arsenal the last couple, 8 goals in his last 6 league games. He's a big miss. And then how big of a miss is Rodri from what we've seen?
So KDB we knew, and we know that he won't be ready before probably January. For Rodri, it's a very different one. Yeah. He's probably the most important player in the City team this season, more than Haaland, more than Alvarez, who've been outstanding, especially Alvarez. But without him, we saw against Wolves, not the same fluidity when they have the ball, and certainly out of possession. You don't have anyone to be able to kind of break the opposition's attack, for example, and you see on the stats without him, and it's always a bit difficult because they didn't play against the same opposition with him and without him. But still, it's still quite obvious how important it is for them. It's
quite amazing as well, because for someone in that position, it's almost like the selfless position these players play in. But I love watching him. I don't think it matters. City have types of players. It doesn't matter who you support. You have to respect the quality of these players. And Calvin Phillips will probably more than likely play. He's a good player, but he's not Rodri. And I agree with what Julian said. He's one of those players that makes everybody tick. What I will say, though, maybe there's a fragility there with regards to them losing against Wolves, going out of the Carabao Cup against Newcastle. Maybe this could be the moment. I know they won Champions League midweek in that game, but this could be the time where Mikel Arteta could potentially, because it's always been that thing. Mikel Arteta was with Pep. He's a mini Pep. Joe Hart got taken out the lineup when Pep got there. David Raya's come in Ramsdale. It's almost like that comparison is always there. And I feel like it could be the moment where he could potentially get that first win over him.
Yeah, well, that's what we're looking forward to, isn't it? Want to
You look
see how
very
it
excited,
goes.
just on
the tactical battle. I'm set for it now. I wish they could play the game right now. One thing I did want to talk about, though, was the Kai Havertz factor, because you mentioned David Raya. And, of course, we've been focused on, is Saka going to be injured? We've been focused on the goalkeeping situation. Just out of interest's sake, before I get to the Kai Havertz question, who would you start in goals for Arsenal on Sunday?
I feel like Ramsdale. For me, just the way the whole thing's been handled, I'm going with Ramsdale.
You?
It would be Raya. I tell you right now.
Okay, split down the middle. You'll be getting texts from me on Sunday saying you were wrong or you got it right. The Kai Havertz question is about the emotion around that celebration. They gave him the ball to take the penalty. It just shows kind of the togetherness in the team, yes, but also how badly he needed this.
I think as well, like, it's even though they were already winning this game, it's a high-pressure moment because Kai Havertz has come under a lot of scrutiny this year. He's been in the lineup, been taken out. A lot of people are saying they don't really know where he plays. He's had 2 massive transfers to Chelsea and now Arsenal. Now, this was big. If he would have stepped up and missed this, things would have been completely different. Not from the Arsenal fans, because they've been still singing his name throughout because you back the players that are there. But if he steps up and misses that, there's a lot of pressure on him, isn't there?
Logically, yeah. It would be. It was already, I think, it was difficult for him because of all the noise around, he hasn't scored, he hasn't assisted, it's a lot of money, etc. And that was good that he scored, but had he not scored, it would have been even worse.
He's not impacting games, though, is he? I saw some stat earlier about his percentage of goals on target and those types of things. You can see there's a player in there, but it's how do they get the best out of him and where's his best position? Where does he fit into this Arsenal team?
Last week, I asked a question about Man City losing in the Cup and then would they have that hangover on the weekend? One of the guests said no chance, and it turned out they did. They lost. Arsenal have the same situation now because they lost in midweek.
They lost in a game that I don't think they expected that intensity from Lens. The same pressure. They didn't respond well at all. It was one of those games where everything was a bit off. They didn't take their chances. Lens took theirs. They just didn't. Something was just missing, and they will want to respond. And this is a special game, and it's at the Emirates. As we mentioned, the last 2 seasons, they came really, really close to beating them. It just didn't happen. Maybe this time is the time.
Spurs and Arsenal are only within a point of Manchester City. Liverpool are at a point further back, and it's just opening up nicely for them. And I just wonder what Spurs think they can do. I mean, Ange Postecoglou says, look, I don't give targets, not publicly, and I don't really make them privately. I'm just like, just keep going and seeing how far this can take us.
I think internally, I don't think the manager will be saying to the players, we can win the league. I think the season's just started. I think it's important to, I know it sounds boring, but focus on the next game. I think when you look at the top teams and the teams that have done it, I think that's the approach that they've always had, probably. Focus on the next game instead of sort of like thinking too far ahead. We've started the season so well. There's no need to focus too far ahead. Who's the next team that we're playing against? Focus on that and continue playing the same way and then see what happens.
I think what it comes down to as well, Kels, is like carry on doing what they're doing because nobody is expecting Tottenham at the start of the season, especially with a new manager, to be doing what he's doing now. So that at the moment they've got confidence and momentum, and you've got to just concentrate on the next game because you look back at when Leicester won it. That's all Leicester did. They just won some games, got to a certain point, and said, "Oh, we'll see what they do when they play like this team and that team." Bam, they beat them. You know what I mean? People saying about Tottenham, okay, we'll see. Okay, we started well, but let's see where we are when we've played Arsenal and Liverpool. Bam, look where they are. It's all about momentum and confidence. And while you've got that, and you can continue to just beat the teams what you're meant to beat, supposedly meant to beat, and keep going, then you don't get the injuries to Son and Maddison, which people will continue to talk about. The more success they have, then the pressure starts coming into the squad. Because there's going to come a time, if Tottenham are doing what they're doing now, well, they're going to have to answer the question about title challenges. At the moment, I probably think that the teams in the top 5 are all title challengers. And as long as you could stay, like if you could stay close to Man United, like at 1 point, for as long as you can.
It's Manchester City.
Manchester City. For as long as you can, of course you are challengers.
They've all been helped in that by the fact that City lost against Wolves, which has come as something of a surprise to people who may have been saying Manchester City haven't been vintage Man City this season, but they've been able to get the wins in all of the games so far. So that was a shock result, especially with City equalising against Wolves and Wolves going back in front again.
Yeah, obviously also because they had a midweek loss as well that we didn't expect for that to happen too. And then you think another one, you think, is there a wobble? I mean, City always seem to overcome this, but I mean, I think most of us were quite glad for Wolves because we've seen their performances against Manchester United, against Liverpool, and seen how good they have been. And they've been trying to move away from just being a counter-attacking team, but they did exactly that against City. They understood how to really show you the best of what they have, the pace and the strength up front, and try to just be really direct against a team that sometimes has problems with that. You're missing Rodri. Without Rodri, it is the key to what Man City do. And before him, Fernandinho. Whoever used to occupy that position becomes the most important player for Pep Guardiola. And I think his absence is showing us right now that there is a problem. Pep likes the small squad because his tactics are so intricate and he likes to make sure that everyone understands what's being done. He doesn't want to manage a big group. But at the end of the day, squad depth gets you further when you do have such a packed schedule. And he does. And like he says, maybe we should start protesting the amount of minutes.
But all the 33% loss percentage without Rodri, 33% loss is not a big percentage for anyone else. But for Manchester City, the comparison is stark without him in the side.
I mean, he's just as important as a Haaland, someone that's going to score you 30 goals. Because I think when you look at the way City play and how a lot of teams want to play, that position is so important because everything goes through they call it like a pivot or a six or whatever. Everything goes through that man, and Pep wants his players to stay in their positions. And then, if that's the case, you need someone to serve, break lines, and he does that. I mean, for me, he's the best in the world at doing that. And you see the graphic there. You know, when he's missing, you know, it's a massive miss for City.
It is a massive miss for City, and it just leaves things quite finely poised. But Pep Guardiola was very complimentary about Wolves, as he often is, about upcoming opponents. And unfortunately, some of that came back to haunt him as Wolves capitalised on many of their social media channels.
That was a great ending.
He'll remember his name now, won't he?
I thought the Korean guy.
It is so unfortunate. But you can the Wolves social media team are quite punchy. Actually, they've had a couple of those, but that's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, you can't say that, man.
No.
You can't say that. But like, I'm quite pleased that he scored. He's quite a dangerous player, though. You watch Hee-chan. He's very dangerous. What I liked about how what Wolves done against City is showed that in this league, if you're Man City, yes, you got someone like Rodri missing, but their team's stacked. And you go and you're not quite right, you will get beat. Even by like the Wolves, you wouldn't say they've had an unbelievable start to the season with their new manager. But like and we know what the game plan is. City will attack you and you have to take your chances, your moments when they come. The most impressive thing about Wolves is, like you said there, Jay, is even when they went down to 1-1, they still went for them. And this is what you have to do with City. The whole league have to try and do this with City to keep them under that pressure. You have to keep them under that pressure because it's got to be a collective effort for people to try and slow City down so as Arsenal can hopefully win. Why did that come out? I was wanting to come out.
I don't know where
So you think that's the way to approach it? You just got to go for it.
Well, the thing about it is that you look at City, and for any team, apart from, I'd say, the top teams who are amongst them, that's ourselves, Tottenham, Liverpool, you know, those teams have to get something off of them. But like those teams, like when you're thinking about those teams, when you're trying to chase a City, Kells, and then you hear City have got Wolves, you naturally in your mind, like as a player, you like if it was Man United back in the day, you say Man United have got Southampton, you're kind of putting it down that they're gonna win that game. So when you see teams who are able to put City under that kind of pressure from Wolves' level in that middle kind of section, and they beat them, that gives you more energy because you're saying it's up to other teams. You're not going to do anything by beating Man City apart from get the plaudits, right? The point I'm making. City is not the teams you have to beat, like a Wolves or a Southampton or these teams, or teams who are in the Premier League. City are not the team you have to beat to get to progress. It's the teams around you. But if you could get people who can take points off City...
It would just make life easier.
But that is not my main point, but that's for everybody. That's for everybody to benefit from.
We all benefit. When the Arsenal win, we all win. Is that what you're trying to say? Listen, when Arsenal next weekend face Manchester City.
Yes.
And Manchester City without Rodri. And I'm not trying to get you to say anything that's going to make Manchester City's social media account managers prick up their ears, but what are you thinking? A City without Rodri... Does that make it a little bit more doable?
Simply because you have to try. You know, Jermaine's right. He's easily one of the best in the world in that position. So if that guy's not playing, then you have to do everything you can to put pressure on that area and that place that area in the pitch where you can put them under pressure to try and get something. Because I believe if Arsenal are going to go on to win the league, or if it's Tottenham or if it's Liverpool, whoever it's going to be, at some stage you're going to have to beat them at least once. You're going to have to beat them. We've seen that they are capable of being beaten. We see that every season someone beats them. So it's up to us now.
Is that a dig at the fact that they're not going to be invincibles this year as well? Are you going in two-footed again?
I'm not going in two-footed.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking that for Arsenal taking on City, they've got to go in thinking we have got to go in wanting to beat them, not trying to hang on to something. Go and play them. Look at Wolves, 1-1, and they still went and attacked them. That's what you should be doing to City when they're away from home.
That's what makes the league so good, right? It was always that. It was the fact that every team felt that they had a chance against all the teams. And then slowly you sort of see the power of City and you think, oh, we're not going to budget a loss here because it's City.
Yeah.
But that is, historically speaking, why the Premier League is the league that we all watch. Because you know when you're watching the others that when you come up against a big tank, whether it's Bayern Munich or Juventus, you're probably going to budget a loss. But, you know, the Premier League, everyone went for it. And we need to get back to that to make sure that everyone feels that they can get a point or two.
Starting with Arsenal next weekend.
Yes.
It's going to be a tense one, and we will be reflecting on it, although maybe a bit less tense because it's earlier in the season, which might work in Arsenal's favour.
The floodlights beaming down. I'm Derek Ray, ready to bring you commentary, and joining me is the former Arsenal defender Lee Dixon. And this has all the makings of a highly engrossing match. It's Accrington Stanley facing Manchester City.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, really looking forward to both teams producing entertaining football. Let's see if we get that.
Is it going to be? Oh, big chance. Gabriel Jesus. And a goal right off the bat. No wonder they're jumping for joy.
Well, here's the replay. Super fast counter-attack football at its best. And a 2v1 is never fair. To be honest with you, the keeper's got no chance to stop this. It's lovely football.
One 1-0 then. Gabriel Jesus. Mahrez. He's in behind. Gabriel Jesus in position, back post here. Well, that would be straightforward for any keeper. Rodri. It's with Gundogan. Gabriel Jesus. City move it forward with purpose. De Bruyne. Now Gundogan. After the foul, a chance to contemplate what is next, and perhaps a goal from this free kick. Now that should... Can he put it in? Was an important piece of defending. Might be a chance here.